It's an annual sports day at Sakura's school for episode 10. So the story begins at exactly 11 o'clock in the morning. Everybody was there, including Sakura's best friend, Madison, and let's not forget Sakura's brother, Tori, and of course his best friend, Julian. Well, like I said, there's Sakura, and she just moments ago had won the race. So after she joins up with her other best friend, Rita, and what Rita did is that she congratulated her. And like I said, there's Julian along with Sakura's brother Tori. And of course, Julian's the only person who applauded her. So Sakura, however, went up to her brother Tori and her brother's best friend, Julian. One of the first things that Julian did was to make a compliment with Sakura, although she's not amused with Tori's insult, so she stepped on his foot. Then Julian wanted to know from Sakura if they packed enough lunch in case they get hungry later. Then Tori, who's Sakura's brother, just told his sister the good news. He says, "Oh, our father's coming by later." That is, if he can finish up his lecturing. Of course, Sakura said. That way, he can attend and see all the fun events that we did. Because Sakura had just remembered that her father, and of course Tori's father, works at the university where he teaches at. Then Julian says, "Oh, even better. I need to ask you something. Was your father aware that there's a 400-meter parents race that's going on later?" Then Julian asked the question by making a suggestion. "I think your father would be great if he attended. Now, don't you agree?" "Why, yes," Sakura says. "He'll definitely be there." Then suddenly the voice on the PA system says, "Will all cheerleaders report to the front entrance? I repeat, all cheerleaders must report to the front entrance immediately." When Julian heard that, he told Sakura, "Well, I guess you better get going then." Meanwhile, back with Madison, who just saw the two boys that are passing her by. Then she sees her best friend Sakura now in her cheerleading uniform running up to meet up with her. So after Sakura meets up with her best friend, Madison wants to know if Sakura and Tori's father will be coming by later. And Sakura said that he will. And she wants to know if Madison has her mother coming by later. "Well, she's stuck at the meeting at the moment," Madison says, "but she'll be showing up later." And as I explained earlier, Samantha is Madison's mother who owns the toy company. Then Sakura in her mind just says that Samantha does work at the toy company and her father works at the university as a teacher. But as supportive as they are, they try to be there whenever they could. So now that all the cheerleaders lined up, they did some baton twirling and everything else, just like what any cheerleader would do. And of course, Julian was more than happy to take some pictures, in which he did. So Julian just made a compliment with her brother, and that's when her brother says, "Well, the only problem that Sakura has is that every time she twirls a baton, it lands on her head. It happens on many occasions." So anyway, the voice on the PA system says, "Attention please, there's a fourth grade obstacle course race that's coming up." So anyway, back with Julian and Tori, they just noticed that there are petals of flowers that are running out of nowhere, but they didn't seem to think anything of it. So all the fourth graders, including Lee and Sakura, and of course, before the race could begin, that's when Sakura looked over her shoulder and that over in the audience, wishing them luck, were Sakura's friends, Madison, Chelsea, Nikki, and Rita. So after Sakura got done waving, that's when she realizes that she wasn't alone, because standing next to her is Lee. Before the race could begin, that's when Julian was waving at Sakura, and of course Lee looks at her and says, "I don't think you would beat me." "We'll just see about that," Sakura says. So as planned, the race went on as planned, with Lee and Sakura being neck and neck all the way through the obstacle course. So far there weren't any problems. Then at last, long story short, that's when Sakura won the obstacle race. And of course, videotaping it as usual is her best friend, Madison. She wouldn't miss this event, not even for a minute, at least a second. So now that Madison has met up with Sakura after the race was over, Sakura wants to know from Madison, has her mother Samantha showed up yet? "I'm sure that she'll show up very soon," Madison said. So Sakura suggested that her best friend Madison could join up with her and along with her brother and her brother's best friend for lunch. But Madison's getting worried that it may not be enough food for everyone and asked if Sakura was sure of it. So Sakura says that she's sure. And of course, she even asked Lee to join up with them, and so Lee agrees. Now that everybody's having lunch together, Madison, who's Sakura's best friend, just made a compliment to say, I just can't believe that your brother and Julian have made all this food, and there's enough for everyone. Of course, Madison wasn't kidding when she said that, but still, everybody else was not aware that there are flower petals coming out of nowhere. As you may have guessed it, Julian has a heck of an appetite, and so he apologizes for it, but Sakura forgives him. Then moments later, Sakura and Tori's father, Aiden, shows up. First of all, he apologized for being late. So we even know Aiden had missed Sakura's cheerleading demonstration, but luckily for Madison, he was told not to worry and that she has it all on tape. Luckily for her, she actually did so. Then Julian, luckily for him, he said that he just took some pictures and he made sure of it. And of course, Aiden was more than happy to hear it from Julian. So even though Sakura had forgave both her and her brother's father, so he says, oh, even better, I brought us some dessert, and there's plenty for everyone. And so that's what everyone did. They each got their dessert cups. Then Aiden said that there's something even better. There's more of them like that back at the Avalon residence. So he told everyone that he'll take out the trash and that he'll be right back. But Aiden won't be doing it alone because Tori suggested he should help out, and so did his best friend, Julian, and so they all head off. So now that Madison and her best friend Sakura are all by themselves, but regretfully for Lee, he never got the chance to try out the pudding, so he ran off. Then Madison sees her mother Samantha walking by. As soon as Sakura looks up at Samantha, that she can tell that how beautiful she looks. So Madison was more than happy to introduce her best friend to her mother, whom she's never met. Now Sakura was taken aback and she couldn't help but what's going on in her head. So Samantha looked at Sakura and wait, she's not alone because she has a couple of bodyguards with her. So Samantha says, nice to meet you. You know, Madison has spoke to me finally about you, Sakura. Well, it's nice to meet you too, Sakura said. As Samantha leans closer to Sakura to say, you know what? You remind me of a girl that I once knew long ago, meaning Sakura's late mother, Natasha. So Samantha continues to tell Sakura that her daughter Madison, who's Sakura's best friend, used to talk about her all the time and etc. But never once did Sakura even say her last name, but before she said it, that's when she heard the voice of both her and her brother's father, Aiden, calling her name. But before long, that's when he is face to face with Samantha, who's Madison's mother. The moment that Aiden is face to face with Samantha, he was in shock. So the two decided to have a chat with each other, in which they did. So Aiden goes first to speak in his case to say, I had no idea that you're Madison's mother. You had a maiden name back then. Then Samantha goes next to speak in her case to say that she should have known Sakura's name the moment she saw her. Then she let slip to say before Natasha passed away just 4 years ago, when she made a promise that if she ever had a baby that she'll name her daughter after her favorite flower, which is cherry blossom at that time. And Samantha told Ada, now listen up. Just because we hang out when we were children, it doesn't mean I let you win the race that's coming up later. Then Samantha wanted to know from Aiden if that was clear to him. Oh, yeah, crystal clear, Aiden said. So we know what this means. This could mean a serious rivalry between Samantha and Aiden. Athletically speaking, that is. So after Aiden wishes Samantha the best, watching them were Sakura, and of course Sakura's brother Tori, and of course his best friend Julian. So while Sakura was watching it happen, she couldn't help but think to herself that both her and Tori's father Aiden used to be friends with Samantha, who's Madison's mother long ago, when they were young. And now, here they are 4 years later since after Natasha passed away, they had sparked an old rivalry, athletically that is. So now the announcement that the parents' 400-meter dash was about to begin, that's when Aiden meets up with Sakura, her brother Tori, and her brother's best friend. First of all, he apologized for the holdup. He just had a chat with Samantha, who's Madison's mother. So Sakura asked her father, "You're still going for the race, right?" Well, Tori wants to know if there's anything that he could do to help out. But Aiden declined Tori's assistance and then said that he and Samantha has an old score to settle that is long overdue. So as the parents' 400-meter race was about to begin, Sakura was more than happy to show both her and Tori's father where the starting line is. So after both Aiden and of course Sakura heads off, that's when Sakura's brother Tori has a chat with his best friend, Julian. The first question that Julian wants to know from his best friend Tori if it was true that both his and Sakura's father Aiden used to be friends with Samantha, who's Madison's mother. And if that's the case, what's the big deal about it? Actually, Tori says when he lets slip in front of his best friend to say, Aiden and Samantha are not exactly friends, they're rivals in a way. And Julian says, really? And they hadn't seen each other in the last 4 years? No, they haven't, Tori says. So as Tori explains why when flashback, he said that both Samantha and of course Sakura and his father and of course their late mother had been friends while growing up. However, there's only one problem, Tori explains. Both his and Sakura's father, Aiden, and Samantha were always competing with each other, athletically, so to speak. So Tori also says that even though they're not getting along really well, but the reason why they're still friends is because of Natasha, which is Tori and Sakura's late mother. Then back to the present! Then Tori also explains that everything changed ever since when both his and Sakura's parents were in high school and they fell in love and got married. Until we know where this is going. Natasha passed away just 4 years prior. But according to Tori, the final straw that broke Samantha's back was during the high school finals. And of course, both Tori and Sakura's father beat Samantha in the race. And she's been upset about it. Then Tori also says that up until this very minute, that's why Aiden, which is both his and Sakura's father, had not been seeing Samantha since. So Julian says, I had no idea that both your family and Madison's family had a lot of history with each other. Now, according to Julian and what he says in his case, that both Tori and Sakura's father and Madison's mother didn't stay friends for very long. But at the last minute, both Tori and Julian looked up and there are raining flowers everywhere from out of nowhere. And they couldn't help but wonder, what is going on? Where are the flowers coming from? So back with Madison and Sakura, and they just couldn't believe that after 4 years that both Sakura and Tori's father are reunited with Madison's mother. So Madison wanted to know from Sakura if that were true, and Sakura says that it is true. But it turns out that both Samantha, Madison's mother, and of course Aiden, who's Sakura and Tori's father, were not the only ones that were there on the race. Everybody else is there too. Now concerned, Sakura wants to know from her best friend if her mother ever said that she was racing with Sakura and Tori's father, Aiden. Madison said no. So Sakura wants to know from her best friend what made Samantha change her mind. So even though both Sakura and Madison had no idea that both of their parents are competing with each other, meaning Madison's mother, Samantha, and of course Sakura and Tori's father, Aiden. So the race is about to begin, and with the sound of the gun, everybody ran off. So far, everything went as planned when Aiden's in the lead. But what Everybody else didn't know, including Sakura and Madison were unaware that there are raining flowers everywhere, including Tori and Julian, but they had no idea of what to make of it. So anyway, long story short, after Sakura's brother Tori had asked Julian a question, that's when back with Chelsea and Rita, who were holding the finish line, they're left to wonder where are those flowers coming from and what's going on. So back with Madison and Sakura, by the time that they saw the falling flowers, and that's when they should have guessed that, yep, it's a you know what. Flower card to be exact. So that explains why the flower petals are raining everywhere. And inside the classroom, Lee just watches the raining flowers from out the window. And that's when he realizes that it's a flower card, all right. And he tries to run out to help Sakura, but Zack, who is also there, wouldn't allow him to do it. So after Zachary looks out the window to look at the raining flowers for a while, but when Lee tries to leave, instead he gets tackled from behind, thanks to Zachary. So long story short, back at the schoolyard, where there are raining flowers everywhere, now it's up to Sakura and Madison to find out where they're coming from and why. In the meantime, Aiden's still in the lead, away from Samantha, that is, and they're still in the race, while there are raining flowers everywhere, which they are not aware of. Also, Rita and Chelsea are now being almost neck high in flower petals everywhere. Sakura knew that there was no time to lose. Sakura's best friend wants to know, are you sure you want to use your magic here? Well, since nobody's looking, why not? Sakura says. So, what does Sakura do? She does what she always does. She uses her cloud key to change it into a staff. So she did. Next thing that Sakura did was to use the fly card so that she and Madison can write on Sakura's staff. So they did. So by the time that they look down below, there are a bunch of flower petals everywhere all over the schoolyard. So now it's up to them, Sakura and Madison, to find out where are they coming from. But before that could get underway, that's when Madison suggested to ask Sakura, why don't you ask Kuro about it? He knows all the cloud cards, he knows what to do. So, following Madison's suggestion, that's what Sakura did. So, meanwhile, upstairs in Sakura's bedroom at the Avalon residence, that's when Kuro gets a phone call from Sakura to tell him what was going on. So Sakura told Kiro that there's a serious problem back at Sakura's school, and there are raining flowers everywhere, and if something isn't done soon, then this could mean a catastrophe. So Kiro realizes that there is no doubt and that Sakura is onto something, and that is definitely a flower card. So now that Sakura knows what it is, that's when she's asking Kiro, what are we gonna do about it? There's raining flowers all over the place. Well, Kiro says, all you have to do is find out where it's coming from, and then ask Sakura if there's a source that could be found everywhere. At first, she doesn't see it, but then she looks up ahead and sees that there's a pinkish glow that's on the school's roof. So, back with Aiden and Samantha down below in the schoolyard, they're still racing each other. And as for Chelsea and Rita, they're drowning in flowers, but luckily for Julian and Tori, they managed to assist them in any way, and which they did. So Julian told Chelsea not to worry, that he and Tori could handle the finish line for themselves. So back with Madison and Sakura, well, good news, they made it to the school's roof to where the glow was coming from. And there they saw it, the flower cards form of a beautiful lady dressed in pink. And she's spreading flowers everywhere. No wonder that there are flowers everywhere in the schoolyard. And I gotta tell you, the flower card's dress looks great. Now you can tell that Sakura's very fascinated with the flower card's form. So Madison's asking, well, what are you waiting for? And as the flower card's form comes closer to her, back at Sakura's house upstairs in the bedroom, that's when Kira was asking Madison, how'd it go up there? Well, it couldn't have been better, Madison said. Well, this woman is dancing with her at the moment, or should I say the flower chord's formidable woman. Well, don't worry about it, Kira says. She just wants to have fun, that's all. So Sakura was still dancing with the flower chorus form, and that's when Madison says if something isn't done quick, then the whole schoolyard would be buried in flowers. So finally, at long last, Sakura did what was needed to be done. She captures the flower card, and she did just that. So the flower card makes it number 12 on the list. So back with Kiro in Sakura's house upstairs, he explained to Sakura what the flower color does. It just wants to spread flowers everywhere, to brighten up the place a little bit. That explains why the schoolyard is covered in flower petals everywhere. Well, good news, now that the flower card has been captured, that means the schoolyard has been saved. But now here comes the bad news. Madison forgot to record it. So that's a big oops on her part. Back down below, while the race was still going on between Aiden and Samantha. Well, good news. Aiden, who's Tori and Sakura's father, won. So after Aiden had won, what Julian did is that he has given him the winner's flag. And thanks to Tori and Julian, they managed to help out. And let's just say Aiden had thanked them both for it. Julian and Tori, that is. So now that the race had ended, everybody started cleaning up all the flower petals that were raining everywhere, including Chelsea, Nikki, Rita, and of course, Tori and Julian. Meanwhile, back with Aiden and Samantha, Aiden goes first to speak in this case. He said that is some race that we did back there. So Samantha has her turn to plead a case by saying, "Oh, and I suppose you want to rub my face in it, right?" First of all, Samantha, as she says in her case, that Aiden had won the nationals back in his high school days. Then he married her best friend, which is, of course, his late wife, Natasha. So now you get to be the hero of our kids. Is that correct? Samantha said. Well, I do have to admit to one thing, Aiden said. Natasha really missed you very much. He told Samantha that. Then he said, I had no idea that she's meant so much to you. Then Aiden pleaded his case to say it was Samantha who made it all possible, and that he had never been to nationals if it wasn't for her. And of course, he appreciated that effort because of that. But unfortunately, neither Aiden nor Samantha were aware that hearing that conversation were Madison and Sakura. So Samantha pleaded her case to say, I don't need your sympathy. I lost that race because of you, so don't try to make me feel any better. It's not going to work, Samantha says, because, as she says in her case, that she hated to lose. And Aiden, as Samantha says in her case, should know better than that. Back with Madison and Sakura, who Samantha and Aiden were unaware that they had listened to the conversation. And before things could escalate any further, that's when Madison made Sakura a suggestion. And what was that suggestion? To have Sakura use the flower card that she had caught earlier. And so that's what Sakura did after listening to Madison's suggestion. Back with Samantha and Aiden, they finally stopped arguing, but not exactly in a physical sense. That's when they saw a couple of cherry blossom flowers that appeared out of nowhere. One of each, one for Samantha and one for Aiden. As Samantha looks at the flower that came out of nowhere, she realizes that it's a cherry blossom, Natasha's favorite. Even Aiden recognizes it as well. Samantha made an omission with Aiden on how herself and Natasha, which is Aiden's late wife, had been like sisters to each other, but not exactly bloodline related. Then Samantha complimented her how Aiden's late wife had a beautiful smile and everything else. Then Samantha, as she says in her case, that Natasha had a way of making people happy, and of course, she's not kidding. Then Aiden has his turn in his case to say, as much as I hate to admit it, we were both glad that Natasha has been in our lives when she did. So even though Samantha agrees with Aiden when he said that, then she says that I love Natasha. She was my best friend. the best that I ever had. I agree, Aiden says, and you know and I know that we both loved her very much, and I happen to agree with it. So, long story short, after the memories of Natasha had faded, that's when Samantha pleaded her case to Aiden to say, when she married you, I didn't think that there was room for her in my life anymore, or so that was the case with Samantha. And now, Samantha, as she says in her case, she was wrong. So, in Samantha's case, now with Natasha gone, she felt pretty guilt ridden about it. Then Samantha also says in her case that if Natasha hadn't have passed away, that Samantha would have had a chance to say to Natasha how much she meant to her, and now she wished she had. As you can tell, that Samantha just couldn't control her feelings anymore. She lost it emotionally. To make Samantha feel better, that's when Aiden says, I'm sure Natasha already knew that we both are going to miss her very much. And he admitted to that. So back with Madison and Sakura, they were walking towards the closing ceremony that was about to begin at any moment. That's when Madison let slip to Sakura to say how her mother mentioned how Sakura's late mother and of course Madison's mother used to be friends one time when they were very young and did everything together. And who would have thought, Madison says, that here it is 20 years later and you and I are friends. She told that to Sakura. I know, Sakura says. I suppose in this case it's destiny or fate, just the way it's meant to be. So Sakura told Madison that no matter what, they'll be friends forever. Madison, who agrees with Sakura to say, of course we will. Just think about it, Sakura says. Maybe one day, somewhere in the future, I'm sure your mother Samantha and my father, and let's not forget Tori's father as well, Aiden, will be friends again one day. And maybe, just maybe, they might be able to put their differences aside. Well, who knows, Madison says, when she happens to agree with her. And then Tori, who's Sakura's brother, to say, hey, you guys, hurry up. The closing ceremony is about to start. I'm coming, Sakura said. So Sakura asked Madison, would you like to go along? Of course I will, Madison says. And so Madison agrees to follow Sakura. Well, Sakura is right in her case. Maybe someday both her and Tori's father will be friends with Madison's mother, Samantha, someday. But in the meantime, they have a lot of catching up to do. And as for Sakura in her case, she's got a lot of cloud cards left to catch. So that ends episode 10.